Dear congregation, May 2nd, 2022, and the peace of Christ be with you this morning and this week. And I just want to talk about some things that I have been thinking about in the last couple of days as I went back to Easter Sunday and family gathering that I had with my family, which always reminds me, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed every day. And I said, we had a family over. My son and his family came over, and well, it's a couple of things here that come to mind. Is that Sunday dinner and Easter Sunday dinner, and the text we had talked about this past Sunday about the conversion of Paul, and the one line that God says in the text is that he's chosen Paul to be a witness, to have a special plan for Paul to proclaim the gospel. And then he tells Ananias that Paul will find out just what he must suffer for the sake of the gospel. And to think of that word suffer in the context of the Greek word pascha, which means suffering, but also when it's used in relation to Christ, it's about the passion of Christ for his mission. And so those two come together for me this morning to think about us and our relationship with Christ and with the church, and wonder what are we willing to suffer? What kind of passion do we have for Christ and the church? And that comes up because we had talked about how that morning we had chosen not to worship outside because of the temperatures, and he kind of got a chuckle out of it. Now, my son is not a churchgoer. I wish he were, but he's not. And he had the comment, well, Jesus was whipped and beat and nailed to the cross. He's willing to suffer that much, and you aren't willing to endure a little cold to worship him, which made me kind of chuckle, because he has a point there. And maybe enduring the cold for worship of Christ on Easter Sunday isn't a huge thing, but it makes me wonder, as we expand that out into our lives, the question is, how much are we willing to suffer for Christ? How much passion do we have for Christ in our everyday life? And of course, as we've come out of COVID and meeting and worship, and of course, you've probably heard the numbers aren't good, and they never have been good. They've been declining. However, with all that said, the question is, how much are we willing? How much passion do we have for Christ in our practice of our faith? And how does that look to those like my son who are not part of a church body, who are on the outside of it? And what kind of passion do we display for Christ in a lot of things? And worship is just part of that. And certainly our passion for Christ should be to be in worship, so that we can study God's word, so that we can hear the sermons, that we can worship together, pray together. How much are we willing to do for that, for Christ in that way? But that also extends into our everyday life outside of the church building, where we are the church, where we are those who are supposed to be worshiping God in everything we do. How much passion for Christ do we have? And how will that show? How does that show in how we treat others, how we love each other, how we accept everyone the way they are, and those who are the way they are outside of the church? How are we going to represent the church to them so that they want to be part of that kind of a community? I think we need to look at that. And I include myself in that because I'm not sure I always show the passion. I am like you. I'm a human being. I have a lot of things in my life outside of the church. How do I display the passion for Christ? What am I willing to endure for the sake of the cross? That's an important question for us. Not just today, not Monday morning quarterback of church, but of our everyday life. How do we display our passion? And if we can't, why is there not a passion? Considering all that Christ has done for us, are we not willing to endure a little bit? Not just cold, but also are we not able to have passion enough to proclaim Christ who is risen indeed? That's what we want to consider this week. How will we show the passion for Christ that is emblematic of Christ's passion for us? Let's hold on to that this week, and let's focus on how can we demonstrate our passion for Christ and the church and those in our community around us. And how will we use that passion to invite people back into worship and into worship the first time? Maybe for those who have been out of the circle of the church for a while. Let's work on that. Let's think upon that and everything that we do. Always know that I am holding all of you in constant prayer. I'm trusting in God's grace, God's passion for all of us as we move through our days and our weeks, not just today and not just this week, but every day and every week of our lives. Let us live that Christ is risen, that he is risen indeed. God's blessings upon your week as you continue to go about your daily routine and think about how you might show passion for Christ. We will see you next week.